Publish that in your Google bio.
Yeah, it's probably out there on the social media someplace. Okay. So we'll chant Jai Radhamadava, Prabhupada's, sending Prabhupada's favorite kirtan, and then we'll talk a little bit, Bhagavad Gita. Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Happy New Year, Kijan. So, if I just do the announcement correctly, the program goes till midnight, so I can talk a while, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's nice to be here, so now I'm going to be here. I think I spoke here last maybe a year or two ago. I think. Maybe it was even pre-COVID. I think it was post-COVID, I can't remember. Either way, it's nice. I got a tour today of the new temple building. How many of you have visited the new temple building in the last 3 months? Not so many. How many of you at least driven by to see what's going on in the last 3 months? How many of you are making sure your donations are going to a good cause? You got to have Krishna, but you have to, trust and verify, right? Ronald Reagan said like that. Anyway, I can vouch that I visited the temple today, and it's very nice to see the way it's coming up so nicely. I have to look and see, but I don't know of any of the other temples that I visited that have recently been constructed. I told this to Prabhu and also Paul. I don't know of any other temples that are building with cement block. And if you haven't been inside, I'm not an engineer, but I looked at those steel beams. We got to check on this, but those beams are about this big. So any of you that are wondering, is this temple going to be around for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, my great-great-grandchildren? Yes, it will be for a long time. It is a well-built building. And we all know for things to be built well, it takes time. It takes some time. Raise your hand if you grew up or you heard or your children came home one day with the fairy tale of the 3 little pigs. Anybody remember the 3 little pigs? Okay, so we don't usually like to talk about pigs because we talk about cows, but cows are smarter than pigs, so they maybe would have. But the whole moral of the story, right, is that one pig builds his house with straw, and the wolf comes and blows it down, and he's in trouble. And then the second, but meanwhile he thought he was just playing all day long, everything was fine, right? And then the second pig built his house with sticks. And he was thinking he's a little better off, but still the wolf came and blew his house. He huffed and he puffed and he blew the whole thing down, right? But then the one little pig, he built his house with steel beams and cement block, if I remember this story correctly. And the wolf came and huffed and puffed. He couldn't get anywhere. He went and he complained to the Better Business Bureau. You're not supposed to build them like this. How am I supposed to get in? But that didn't work. So in the same way, that's beautiful. The temple and the space is absolutely gorgeous. There's classrooms, there's high ceilings. The culture hall is huge. It's, hopefully none of your kids go in there and start saying, we want a mountain climbing. Like they do some of the schools. What do they call it when they climb up the sides?
Rock climbing.
Rock climbing, yeah. They
Hardcore.
might want it, If you have an advisory board of youth, they may say, look, we invite you rock climbing in that culture hall downstairs. It's hot. It's 20 feet high or something. Beautiful. Beautiful space. And I didn't get to see them, but we heard that, as we heard the announcement, that the deities, Radha Krishna deities, I don't know if you've named them yet, Radha Krishna deities have a That's a very, very special thing. So it's a very auspicious way to end the new year. And yeah, I'm sure everybody here has made a lot of sacrifices to try to get the temple the way to the point that it is. But and in addition to that, we should all remember, they say the night is always darkest before dawn. The race always seems toughest at the last mile, but you're very close to finishing that building. You've all made a lot of sacrifices to do so, and if you still have capacity to make another financial contribution, I was not asked to say this by the temple president, but I'm enthused to say so, having seen that building. If you are in a capacity to help more, if you have friends that can help more, please do so. I was looking at that sheet over there. I was pretty impressed. I don't often see that the temple president is the largest donor for a project. I think that's something pretty special. He's not the only donor, and it wouldn't happen without everybody else's support, but that says a lot as far as the level of commitment of the leadership of the temple here. So you're very fortunate at this temple coming up, and please do everything you can to make sure that it is completed as soon as possible. And it's a place that you'll be very proud to bring your friends. And I'll speak very bluntly now to mobilize you a little more. This building is not a place you can bring your friends and be proud of. I pulled in here today, I was a little embarrassed. I think a little bit while thinking we're going to get a new building, so we don't need to close the lid. You see those big trash cans down there on the way out the door? I was with a friend. If I was driving my own car, I would have closed it. I would have parked the car, got out of the door, and put the lid on the trash thing. So I don't know why people don't think like that. This is Krishna's temple. It's Krishna's property. It's not his job or her job or yours. It's all of our jobs. We're devotees to this community. We shouldn't think, okay, we're going to be in a new building, and it's not. We're not moving. Are we moving tomorrow? Don't think so. It's going to be a while. So we have this place. This is Krishna's home. We have to take care of Krishna's house, and Krishna's house should be a place that we can be proud to bring people. So even though You know, it's an old building, and old buildings have their problems, but there's things that we can do to make sure that the building is presentable so we can bring other people. How are we going to attract people to Krishna if they walk in the door and they go, whoa, what kind of place is this? When I first moved in D.C., I'll tell you a story. Michael Paul's heard me say this before. He can verify it's true. I was with my wife. We're driving down the street in D.C. How many of you have been to the Potomac Temple? Okay, so you know the new temple coming up, and there was an old place. This is going back a few years, but we were driving down the street. I've been told that there's the old temple, there's one nice building, the rest of it's not so nice, but you know, that's what I was told. So I'm driving on the street looking at this house. Oh, that's a nice house. Oh, that's a nice house. We're getting closer. What's the number again? Looking on that's a nice house. Oh no, that can't be our temple. And I drove right by. And I stopped and I chanted Hare Krishna a few times. And I got my strength, and I turned around and went back, and that was the temple. And ever since, trying with a whole bunch of very sincere people, do my little bit to try to make it more presentable, more appropriate for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to live in that house. You know? It's like if you drive by a big house and you see big places, whatever. I understand she used to be a senator's home someday. You drive by some big house, the house represents who lives there. In that temple, the new one's going to beautifully represent Krishna. But we should make sure each and every one of us, whatever we see and notice, or what's not, we have a responsibility. We're all Krishna's servants to make sure this place also represents Krishna very nicely. So please think about the future, but also think about the present. It's very, very important. Very important. Prabhu said an intelligent person is always aware of their surroundings. He asked devotees one time. He said, "How many beams were in the ceiling in the room I was speaking in?" They were all flabbergasted. Prabhu, we're supposed to see Krishna. What do we care about the beams? Prabhu said, no, intelligence. Silent intelligence is you're aware of the surroundings. So we have to be aware of our surroundings. So, okay. You still want to hear me talk more? Or are you fed up? And I just no, it's okay. Okay, so Happy New Year, everybody. This is the last day of 2023, right? We've got 6.5 hours to go. It's going to be the first day of 2024. It's a time, like the poster says, celebrate. Celebrate. I remember as a young person, New Year's Eve was like the worst day of the year. Because my parents would go out and they would leave me with Mrs. Carlson. Mrs. Carlson was, I mean, this is a slight dramatization. She was almost as wide as she was tall. And she was a very, not a particularly kind and fun nature, but that's who I was stuck with on New Year's Eve. So I grew up thinking New Year's Eve is horrible. I can't wait for New Year's because then it'll be gone. Mrs. Carlson's going to go home. But we're devotees. We have this wonderful opportunity to come together on New Year's Eve, say goodbye to the past year, say hello to the new year, and that's really fortunate. A lot of people tonight, they're going to go out and they're going to try to celebrate. We'll talk a little about that. But their celebration is not, most people's celebration, not focused on spiritual principles. And therefore, there's some problems with that. So we all know, according to the Western calendar, at least, it's the New Year. It's a time of new beginnings. It's a time to say goodbye to the old. It's a time for a fresh start. It's a time to look forward to a happy future. This community especially, maybe 2024, definitely 2025. Hopefully the temple will be opening within the next couple of years. It's a very, very positive thing to look forward to. And we all know, you say to people, you say Happy New Year. It's not just an expression. What does it really mean? It means you're wishing people, I hope the next year, all 365 days of it, is happy. It's a nice blessing, you know, to give to people. It's not just, hey, New Year. It's like, I hope you have a happy New Year. I hope your New Year's good. It's also, as we know, and it's become such a commonplace thing in America, they just make fun of it. It's the time of year people make pledges. They make pledges how to do better. So I want to read a particular verse that talks about that, and then we're going to discuss it a little bit about pledges. And I think it's on the board up above. Verse 241. Okay, this is Krishna speaking to Arjuna. I'll read the verse and a little, maybe about half of the purport. So, Vyadisatmaka Tudhir, Ekeha Kudanandana, Bahushaka Yanantascha, Udhaya Vyavasayinam. Okay, is up on the board?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, Krishna says, those who are on this path are resolute in, well, I don't know if I can read and control this at the same time. I work in communications, not IT. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one, O beloved child of the Kurus. The intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So we're going to pull this into a New Year's theme here. So let's repeat it together. Let's all say it together. You can see it together. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness, one will be elevated to the highest perfectional stage of life. That's why I didn't want to do it, because if it messed up, they would blame me, but you're doing it, so they can. Okay. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness, one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmika intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita states, then the text, faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality, to be explained in more detail later in the purport. Fruitive activities are engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds, in other words, karma. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Savam Iti Samahatma Sadurlabhaha. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva, or Krishna, is the root of all manifested causes and branches. So, by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is pleased by is Krishna satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. We'll roll out to the last paragraph, just it's a long purport. The whole process, however, or therefore, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body. Not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by the various types of fruitive acts. So emphasize that last sentence. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. So, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Desai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vichanani Nirvase Shri Srimati Prasthikari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivastava Gaur Bhaktinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare. So, as I was mentioning, this is the time of year people, they all make resolutions. Okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I actually saw there was an article in the Washington Post. I live in Washington Post. Excuse me, I live in Washington. The most popular paper, Washington Post. So there was an article about how to give up addictions. People talk about this. It's the end of the year, make your resolutions, how to keep resolutions. So there was an article about how to give up addictions. There was a person saying, I gave up, smoking and drinking, and I was taking drugs. And here's what worked and here's what didn't work. Sometimes people make year-end resolutions about how I'm going to exercise more, or I'm going to eat better, something like that. I'm going to finish this project, like that. People make different kind of resolutions. And they have great intentions, right? You all pay attention. People, they talk about New Year's resolution. Maybe in the office, they might ask each other, what are you resolving this year? I'm going to do this. I'm going to lose weight again. I'm going to finish this. I'm going to paint the living room. I'm going to, whatever. What's the percentage of completion rate for those? Anybody know?
1%?
Is it? Is it that bad?
It's terrible.
He gets 1%. I'm not going to argue with it because I don't have evidence, but it's pretty bad, isn't it? It's like a joke. They talk about it for 3 days about how everybody has New Year's resolutions, and then for the next 3 days they talk about nobody keeps their New Year's resolutions, and then they don't talk about it anymore. Right? That's basically the way that it works. It's like there's this well-known expression: the pathway to hell is paved by
Good intentions.
good intentions. So the pathway to unkept resolutions is paved by good intentions. So people have good intentions, but they don't complete it. So why? It's a question to ask. It's the time of year. Say goodbye to the old. Say hello to the new. Make some determination. Some things I'm going to do. So why is it that so many people fall short? So that's explained in this verse. And it's basically they get distracted. People have a great idea on the 30th, and by the 1st or the 2nd, it's like, I think I'll put my energy into something else. Now we know that most, at least, maybe it's different in New Jersey, but in Washington, D.C., most New Year resolutions are not focused on spiritual advancement. Is it different here? You used to live in Jersey. You're in New York now, right?
Yep, still do.
You're still in Jersey? So in New Jersey, most resolutions are about how to become more Christian conscious.
Yeah, in this
Yeah.
country, yes.
In this temple, that's true. That's true. Present company accepted.
Correct.
It's not necessarily focused. But this verse is actually showing us that the same challenges that people face in their, shall we say, ordinary resolutions, the same challenges exist for all of us. And whether we have material goals or spiritual goals, we oftentimes fall short, we give up, we don't necessarily have the kind of determination that we would like. So the question is why? Why is that there? Why is it difficult? So Krishna's explaining this to Arjuna because Arjuna is facing a very difficult situation. And he's going to have to be very, very determined. And in some ways, we can't fathom how complicated the obstacles that he faced are or were. But almost in a similar way, we're living in the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. This is the time most people are not focusing on spiritual progress as the most important thing in life. Most people in the office, I don't know about where you go to work, but I'd be willing to guess for almost all, maybe all of you. When you go to work on Monday, your coworkers don't come up and say, "Did you make some spiritual progress this weekend?" Right? I mean, they're not going to ask you that. What they're going to be talking about is, did you win money or lose money on whatever you bet on the football games over the weekend, right? And they're going to talk about, how much did you drink before you got sick? Because they all get sick. I mean, that's what they're going to talk about. But here Christians are telling us that for those of us, all of us here that have spiritual aspirations, that also, if our intelligence isn't focused on the goal, then the determination to achieve those things will not be maintained. And we also will be easily distracted. So why is that? Sometimes we come together, we talked about this a little bit last night. Sometimes we come together as a spiritual community, we have these really high aspirations, and sometimes we fall short in what we know we should be doing. But for God's sake, don't tell anybody. Because you might be embarrassed, you might be criticized, you might be revealed, people may say, well, okay, well, obviously, we're all operating up here, and the fact that you're having trouble means that you must be some kind of lesser person. The fact is, it's a struggle for everyone, especially in this age because of Christian consciousness. And that's what community is there for. Community is there to help us all out. So just like Arjuna, he needed help. He was a mess. He was basically having a nervous breakdown, kind of like in modern terms. He was completely confused. He's a warrior. He's dropping his bow. Prabhu says in a couple lectures, tears are flowing out of his eyes. He might even said that in purport. He said, I quit, Krishna. I can't deal with this. He's a warrior. And the other guys are bad. I mean, there's good folks that ended up fighting on that side. That's what really disturbed him. But it was clear what his responsibility was. But it was very, very, very difficult for him. And he needed help. So we're in a similar situation. We're trying to become Krishna conscious, and sometimes it's described like paddling upstream. Maybe we go home, we put on tilak, we come to the temple, and we chant a little bit. And then as soon as you cross the street, we're bombarded with so many messages telling us, no, actually you guys are missing out. Isn't it? There's probably a few people in your office or where you work, whatever, you can tell them, like, what'd you do New Year's Eve? Well, I went to our temple. Oh, God. Are you serious? On New Year's Eve? I knew you were religious, but New Year's Eve you went to your temple? Yeah. What'd you do? I mean, did you have a party? Oh, yeah, we chanted God's name till midnight. Oh, jeez, I knew you were nuts, right? Asked them, well, what did you do? Well, I went to a really great party, and everybody stayed up, we drank a lot. I said, how'd you feel the next morning? Oh, don't ask. Don't ask. Like when I was a kid, there was an ad on television. I think they still sell apple seltzer. Is that like still a product you sell, like for your stomach? There used to be an ad on TV when I was young. I'm sure they took it off years ago. There's a man sitting on the edge of his bed. He's got a hole in his head, and he says, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. They don't tell you what it was. He just keeps repeating, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. And then Alka-Seltzer to the rescue, take away the pain. So, we come together as a community understanding that we need each other. We need to get strength from each other. We need to get enthusiasm from each other. And sometimes that enthusiasm, that determination is not so great. How do we get it? That's what's being explained here. And New Year's Eve is a great time to talk about determination because the whole country is making vows that they're all going to break. And we don't want to follow that path. So we want to understand what is it that's going to give you some strength. So in the Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere, Krishna gives a nice example about just describing how we can have intelligence to be one focus to make sure we make the right decision. And he explains this simple analogy which is so profound that our whole body is like a chariot. You've all seen the picture in the Bhagavad Gita. Our body is like a chariot. And the chariot of the body is being driven by the horses, the five senses, smell, touch, taste, eyesight, etc. like that. And the mind is the reins that's supposed to be controlling the horses. And the intelligence is supposed to be the driver that's controlling the reins, or the mind that's controlling the senses. But if the intelligence is in focus, if you're on a chariot with five strong, powerful animals, imagine there's five horses running and there's nobody controlling the horses, what's going to happen to your chariot? You're going to stay up all night on New Year's Eve and drink things that aren't good for you and have a big headache the next day. It's just what people do because they don't control the senses by the mind and by the intelligence. And it's described the soul is the passenger. So the chariot is supposed to work for the benefit of the passenger, isn't it? The chariot doesn't do whatever it wants to do. The chariot doesn't let the forces or the senses do whatever they want to do. But that's what's happening in a materialistic society. People are thinking that the more you can eat, the more whatever your senses. I want to see pretty things. I want to smell nice things. I want to taste different things, which could be horrible things. But I want to taste those things. I was just thinking the other day, like one of the fancy things that they eat in this modern society, some of you may know, some of you don't, they like to eat lobster. That's a fancy thing. Like Maine, my sister-in-law lives in Maine. You go to Maine, it's all Maine lobster. You know how they kill those lobsters? They throw them alive in boiling water. I don't know if that's the only way they do it, but this is part of the way they do it. So, and then they eat that thing. I mean, what kind of person, what kind of humanity, what kind of sensitivity, lack of it can you have to do something like that? It's horrific. But they think that's for like aristocratic people. And if you're really aristocratic, then you eat things like fish eggs. Like lobster's bad enough, but like fish eggs? Right? That's caviar. You've all heard the word caviar? So there's probably a lot of parties in New Jersey now. They're like, wow, caviar. I never saw caviar before. It's really fancy. They say, well, no, you lay persnippety. Go catch it yourself. Just bend the fish, the eggs pop out. It's like, yuck. That's horrible. Yeah. Why? Because their intelligence is not sharp. They don't understand the soul. They don't understand the passenger of the car. They don't understand how to sharpen the intelligence, to control the mind, to control the senses, and therefore the senses are just running people ragged wherever they're going. And therefore society tends to be kind of haywire. This is serious. This is serious. Why is it so many times in the very country we live in, we were talking about that Michigan State, we was talking about Madhu earlier. In this country, people get so, whatever the term would be, so insane that they take weapons that they can buy, sometimes with very little proof of who they are, what their own background is. You can buy a weapon that shoots multiple bullets at a rapid pace, walk in a public space, and kill a bunch of people you don't know, maybe even kids. That's total insanity. That's total insanity. You hear about people, sometimes they kill family members, they kill their spouses, they kill themselves. Why? Devotees, why? We shouldn't be blinded to this. Why are these going on? Krishna explained in Bhagavad Gita, because the soul, which is the self, is so out of touch with who they are, what they really need in life. They so little understanding how to control the senses, to control the brains, the mind, and the senses are just out of control. And they do, as it describes in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, horrible, unbeneficial acts, Krishna says, meant to destroy the world. Wow, that's a pretty heavy condemnation that Krishna gives in the Gita. But the whole purpose of the Gita is to help us understand these are the traps, these are the tendencies that are there. How do we transcend those? How do we transcend those? How do we change those? How do we not just be caught up in that? And it goes back to Krishna's simple instruction that if we strengthen our intelligence, if we focus our intelligence on one point, then we won't be distracted. And a positive example from what's happening in the world around us, if you look at, say, big athletes, like I swim once a week. I live in Washington, D.C., trying to maintain a little bit of health. But if I go at the earlier time of day, the swim teams are there from the local high school. Anybody here swimming? Any kids here on the swim team? Anybody ever on a swim team? It's not India's biggest national sport. What? Where? You were a swimmer on a team? Really? So, then you know. I remember in high school thinking, these swim teams, these guys are nuts. The football team practices in the afternoon. The ski team practices in the evening. The volleyball team, the swimmers in the morning and at night for like 2 hours. I thought these people are absolutely crazy. But they're determined, I want to become a good swimmer. They have that determination. They fix their intelligence so they go in the morning and they go in the evening. So much sacrifice, so much practice they put into. And after the many kind, the swimmers kind of particularly step out. Because, why? They're convinced of the goal. I want to be a good swimmer. They're focused on the goal. So they're told, you want to go to the party? No, I gotta swim. You want to stay up late night, watch a movie? No, I gotta get up in the morning and swim. You want to eat this? No, I gotta keep my health right because I want to swim, etc. In the Mahabharata, there's a similar story told of when Dronacharya, he had a test for his disciples. Many of you heard the story, but it's an important story. And he had fixed a bird to the top of a tree and a branch, and he asked each of the disciples, come forward, I want you to shoot your arrow through that bird, through the eye of the bird. I don't know for sure, but hopefully it was a stuffed bird. We don't know for sure, but that's another discussion. So, shoot the arrow through the eye of the bird. So he called up some of the cousins one at a time. Duryodhana, look up there. What do you see? Tell me what you see. Aim your arrow, tell me what you see. And he said, well, what do I see? I see the tree, I see you, Guru Maharaj, I see the bird, and I see the target. He said, okay, thank you. Step aside. Whoever you call next. Yudhisthira, what do you see? I see the tree, I see the bird. Okay, step aside. Arjuna, what do you see? I see the eye of the bird. You know that story? And he said, shoot. Because he was focused on that. So, in the same way, to be successful with New Year's resolutions, people have to be determined. They have to have the intelligence and thoughtfulness. I'm going to do whatever needs to be done to achieve that. So in our spiritual practice, we also have to be very, very determined. When we talk about it, how do we get that determination? How do we keep ourselves focused on the goal and not be distracted? In fact, determination is such an important quality. In the first verse of the 16th chapter, Krishna lists all the godly qualities. And he mentions that steady determination is a quality of a godly person. It's so important, this quality. In the purport to that, see if I can get this quickly. In the purport to that, it explains a little more detail about the steady determination. And Prabhupada writes, Achapalam, determination, means one should not be agitated or frustrated in some attempt. That's what it means to be determined. One should not be agitated or frustrated in some attempt. There may be failure in some attempt. Anybody ever experienced that? You try to do something, you fail? Okay? Prabhupada, the pure representative of Krishna, is saying, that's okay, you're all right, don't beat yourself up on it. Okay? There may be failure in some attempt, but one should not be sorry for that. He or she should make progress with patience and determination. So we can make patience in our spiritual life. We need to be a little patient, and we need to be determined. So how do we be determined in Christian conscience? That's the question. Because we may think, great, I need to be determined. How? I'm not determined. How do you just tell me I should? How do I do it? So a few things on this. In this purport that we read, 741, Prabhupada was emphasizing that, first of all, we need faith. We need strong faith that I'm not this body, that Krishna is God, that He's my friend, that by the practice of bhakti, I can actually achieve the goal. And then that faith, that bhakti becomes my intelligence. It becomes the guiding principle for me. It becomes that voice of reason that gives me insight, how to choose, what to avoid, what to accept. So that faith needs to come there. Where does the faith come from? The faith comes from knowledge, based on our knowledge. Knowledge of who is Krishna. If somebody just says, okay, surrender to Krishna, trust Krishna, like, who's Krishna? Is that your cousin? Krishna who? Or Krishna, the one that spoke the Bhagavad Gita. So how do we know he spoke the Bhagavad Gita? He's the one that sent Arjuna to war. I don't like that. When Prabhupada first came to the West, he was speaking Bhagavad Gita. A lot of people in those days, it was 1966 really when he kind of started speaking to a lot of younger people. Prabhupada's talking Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's telling Arjuna to go to war, and they think, I don't like this book. Wait a minute, because they're thinking, the Vietnam, I don't want to go to war, and protest. What is with this book telling people to go to war? So, knowledge of why does Krishna give certain instructions? Who is Krishna? What's the nature of Krishna? What's his relationship with others who have previously given their life to him? How did Krishna interact with his aunt? How did Krishna interact with his mother? Of course, he's God, but different devotees act in different roles. How did Krishna interact with his friends? How does Krishna interact with those that surrender to him? How does Krishna interact with evil-minded people that surrender to him? How does Krishna interact with evil-minded people that harass his devotees? And the more and more we know about Krishna, we go, whoa, he's a pretty good guy. Maybe I should follow his instructions. Maybe I should trust him. Maybe I should trust him a little bit. So that's two. Strong faith in the Lord. Knowledge in the Lord. It gives us conviction. Association with devotees. If we want to be determined, we need to associate with devotees. It's so important. Some days we may think, I love associating with devotees. Some days our mind may think, I really don't like associating with devotees. Some days we may think, I really like that, Prabhu. Other days we may think, gosh, it'd be nice if he moved to another temple. Etc. The mind is flickering, that's the nature of it. But we need to associate with devotees. Because devotees, they give us enthusiasm. Devotees, they give us faith. They give us a confidence. If every single person we knew in the world asked us, every person you knew asked you today, what are you doing today? Every one of them. And you said, I'm going to the temple. And they said, that's a waste of time. After 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 of those people who are your friends, you might start thinking, maybe it's a waste of time. Maybe I should go do something materialistic. But when you have your closest friends and your family and at least a few people you can depend upon, and you talk to them, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to go to the temple, I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. Oh, there's an event tonight, that's great, I definitely should go. That's such a good use of your time. That association inspires us and gives us strength. And not only that, but that association with devotees, to have one or two people where you can say, honestly sometimes, I'm really struggling with my Krishna consciousness. I'm having doubt, I read Prabhupada said this, I just don't understand, it's causing me some doubt. I heard some sannyasi in some part of the world that some probably fell down. How can a sannyasi fall down? They're not supposed to happen. Maybe I should give up Krishna consciousness, etc. To have people we can talk to is essential in our Krishna consciousness, whether we're, 77 or whether we're 7. That's very important. And along the lines of that, we should endeavor, as kind of a side note in our own spiritual lives, we should really endeavor individually. This will please Krishna a lot. We should endeavor to be that type of person, that type of devotee, that type of friend, who other people can take shelter of. If we become that kind of person that someone can reveal their mind to us in confidence and talk about the problems that they're having, we can encourage them, we can support them, that's very pleasing to Krishna. It's good for them and it's good for us. So associating with devotees, third thing is very important. And parallel with that, we should be a little careful about our association with non-devotees. You know, sometimes it says, don't associate with materialistic people. The world's full of materialistic people. The lady at the grocery store is a materialistic person. The bus driver is a materialistic. Your school teachers, your boss, your employees, everybody, they're all materialistic people. We can't completely avoid materialistic people, except at Michigan State, because I went there, they're all spiritualists, right? Right, Mom? Good, okay. Except good. If you don't get into Michigan State, okay, sorry. But, so the world's full of materialistic, so be careful we don't associate intimately with materialistic people, okay? Make sure that we keep friendship with devotees. So, another one. And this is not selfish, this is smart. We need to understand ourselves and understand what it takes to care for ourselves and what it takes to enthuse ourselves. Some of us, if we read a lot, it really inspires us. Some of us, we're feeling a little low, we chant a lot, it inspires us. Some of us, we come and maybe we make flower garlands to the deities, and that's something I really love. I know in DC there's some ladies that love making the garlands. You try to take that service away from them, they're going to be very upset with you, because that's their connection to Krishna, and that's what inspires them with Krishna. Some of us, it may be that a little austerity. Oh, it's a fasting. Well, I'm going to not just fast until lunch, I'm going to fast until the sun goes down or something, and that will inspire us to know yourself and know what you need. Last night, we were at Nilmani's house, and I was kind of determined to not take prashad, and then they brought the pizza out. And then I thought, well, okay, I should have determination to not take prashad, but I know myself, I will be much more enlightened if I have 2 pieces of pizza than if I say no to the pizza. So I had 2 pieces of pizza, because that's what inspires me. Now some of you, I know some of the people there, I was looking at their plates like, whoa, they don't like you, they didn't give you pizza. And then I realized, they don't like pizza? Or else they ate it before they got out of the kitchen. Maybe that happened. I'm not sure. But so we need to know, what is it that works for us? These days, almost our home movement is made of grihastas, but for some people, do I want to stay single? Be a brahmachari, a brahmachari, is that what's best for me? Is being a grihasta best for me? I need to know myself. Is having 1 child maybe very good for some of us? Some devotees like, wow, they have a capacity, they have 3 kids, 5 kids, 8 kids, great, fantastic, bring them up in Krishna consciousness. That inspires you. Then do that and do it for Krishna. To make it Krishna-centered. So we need to know what works for us. Like I like to give this little example. I don't have Lake Parsippany. I say it right? I don't have Lake Parsippany. We have like a little pond behind our house. You can walk around about 4 minutes. But that's where I go to get rejuvenated. I like to go there and chant japa and sit and watch the ducks and the heron and the hawks. And I get inspired by being in nature. Some of you may be like, nature, are you kidding? Why would, I want to go to like downtown Times Square and like look at all the people and chant Hare Krishna and try to help. Whatever, to know ourselves. We should know what we need to be inspired in Krishna consciousness. One more. We should not be blind to the world around us. If we want to be determined, look what's happening in the world. It's a mess. Dear Lord Krishna, please save this planet. It is going to hell in a hurry. And it's a mess. And our senses may say, oh, there's so many nice, happy things going on. There's a few nice, happy things going on, but there's a lot of hellish things going on. That itself should increase our determination. You read about it. I just read the other day. No offense to the medical people in the room that are doing your very best to help people. Over 200,000 people a year now in this country die from medical errors. 200,000. Whoa! I'm from the Vietnam generation. We're still getting over the fact that 60,000 people died in a war. Different reports. I read an article in Washington Post a few years ago. They said 100,000. That's the lowest number. That's a lot of people. What kind of planet is this? You go to get medical help and they kill you? By mistake, they give you the wrong medicine, they cut off the wrong limb, they do this, they do that. It happens. What kind of place? So we should be aware of this because we realize there's no shelter in this world. There's no permanent shelter in this world. It's a very, very difficult place. That gives us determination. Krishna says in the Gita, he's pretty negative about the material world. For the topmost planet, you go to the highest planet in the whole universe, down at the lowest, he said all the places of misery. So it's a tough place, okay? But, on the other side, knowing that Krishna is actually our friend. How do we be determined? We can be determined knowing that Krishna is my friend. He's not just your friend or his friend or her friend or their friend. He's my friend. He's actually my friend. He's not only my friend, he's my best friend. And he actually wants what's best for me. And he wants to help us. And as Prabhupada says in that first record album, he says that Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. It's not we're trying to make ourselves Krishna conscious. I'm trying to make myself connect with God. I'm trying to go against the current and be spiritual. No, we are spiritual. We are connected. That's our natural state. We become temporarily covered over, temporarily forgetful. You know, we're a little pessimistic about the nation of the world, but in terms of ultimate reality, we are the most optimistic. There's nobody more optimistic than practitioners of bhakti. Because what's the ultimate reality? A person. Who's that person? Our best friend. What's he do? He plays with who? With you if you want to go. How long does he play for? Forever. Doesn't it get boring? No, it gets better every second. Are there other people there? Yeah, there are, but they're not envious. They're just trying to help each other. Automatic curtain. So, in conclusion, all these different things that can help us become determined. Just to review this one more time. Then maybe we can time for one or two questions. Strong. How do we be determined in our Krishna consciousness? At the time of year people make vows, we should also make some vows. How I can become more Krishna conscious in the future. But where do I get the determination to keep those vows? I need to develop my faith in Krishna. I need to have knowledge of Krishna, who he is, how he's taking care of us. Prabhupada writes a couple of his books. Every one step we take towards Krishna, he takes 10 steps towards us. Anybody here have a mortgage? Raise your hand if you have a mortgage or rent. Raise them high. Okay? Less than I expected. Congratulations. You're doing good financially. Okay? So those of you that have a mortgage or rent, just imagine, let's say you go to pay your January rent. You write a letter to the mortgage people, and they say, wow, it's fantastic. You owe us $1,000. We're going to give you credit for $10,000. Anybody got a lender like that? I'd like to know the name of the company. Right? We have a loan for our temple, right? Is our lender offering us those kind of terms? That's the terms Krishna offers us. You take one payment, we give you credit for 10. You take two, we give you credit for 20. That's our vision of the ultimate reality. Wow, I should be determined. I want that kind of experience. I want that kind of relationship. So again, associate with devotees, just summarize the association with devotees, they give us enthusiasm. Minimize our association with materialistic people. Understand what our own personal needs are and take care of those within a Krishna conscious environment. That helps us be determined. Observe what's going on in the world. It is not a nice place. I'm almost 70. The young, handsome actors that I grew up adoring, they're either dead or they're so wrinkled, it's embarrassing to look at their picture. You know? The beautiful young women that were like, everybody was like, use the term of my generation, goo-goo, gaga. The women all wanted to look like them. The men all wanted to marry them. They are old or they're dead. They're gone. Whatever fame they had, whatever beauty they have, whatever power they had, it's gone. And there's been 2 or 3 generations since that time, and the same thing's going to happen to them. So that for that, we're not so optimistic, but for this, we're very optimistic. And therefore, we're determined. So it's a time of new beginnings. It's a time to focus ourselves on making spiritual progress. We should make commitments to be more serious and steady in our Krishna consciousness. And the key to success is being determined. And this is how we can build our own determination. It won't happen overnight. As Prabhupada said, sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we fall short. But we shouldn't be frustrated. If we go on, depending on Krishna's mercy, associated with devotees, cultivating knowledge, we'll become very, very determined. Vrita vrata, right? Unshakable determination and a vow. And Krishna will help us. So that's like the message for the new year. Whatever shortcomings were there last year, shake them off. Move forward. Krishna's our best friend. He'll help us. Not only will help us, he wants to help us. Just imagine that mortgage guy who gives you 10 points for every dollar you pay. Okay? He actually not only takes your money, he follows you around to make sure you're spending your money wisely. He follows you around to make sure you're investing your time wisely. He's there in the back saying, nah, that's not such a good idea. He's saying, actually, that's a good idea, why don't you do this? And if we make the wrong mistake, he goes, we missed that one, but we're going to catch you next time around. He never gives up. That's our understanding of who God is. He never gives up. He doesn't ever condemn us to some lower planet forever, like we may go up and down the universe. He's here to take us back to God, and we have a perfect chance to do so. We've got another year to make progress. So let's try to be determined and do the best we can in that progress. So stop. There's a time for questions, Carl?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, any questions or comments? It's a little warm in here. Maybe we can open the door now. Is that okay? Maybe you're sitting against the door. That's not a good place to sit. I may say open the door. I didn't mean to pick on you. I'm sorry. Any questions or comments? We got 6 hours left, right? Any questions? Thank you for all listening very attentively. I appreciate that. Is that instead of questions, you just applause? Cut it out. Enough is enough. Let's get on with it. No questions or comments?
I think you're perfectly clear.
Usually if there's no questions, it means the mood of the lecture is too many shoulds. If the lecture's a bunch of shoulds, how can you have a question? He's got his opinion on what I should do. I may disagree with it, but I wasn't trying to say that. I was trying to open up some thoughts. We actually have options. But why should we choose this option? That's the question. Why should we choose this option, and how can we choose this option? And how do we protect ourselves to make sure that we always choose this option? That's really important. None of us should think, well, I'm Krishna conscious, I chant 16 rounds, or I got a guru, or I come to the temple, I'm good, everything's fine. You should not think like that. The material world is a dangerous place. Prabhupada writes in the purport of the Gita, even on the royal road, there's danger. We should always be careful. It's easy to forget Krishna. But as I said, our determination can keep us focused. So any questions or comments? Yes, thank you. You asked a question last time, too. They're going to start thinking I pay you to ask these questions. Your question is for someone who wants to be... Now I'm going to ask you to close the door again. I'm so sorry. It's a lot of enthusiastic people out there. Thank you very much. Yes?
My question is, what is your advice for someone who wants to get started into Krishna conscious in 2024?
Someone who wants to get started in Krishna conscious in 2024? Well, if they already want to get started, they've already started, isn't it? So, the advice is, pretty much what we talked about, associate with devotees. We know the essential process given by Lord Chaitanya in this age is to chant Krishna's name. Even people that aren't so much connected with Krishna consciousness have some affinity towards God consciousness, whatever name of God they're attracted to. Recently I read in another lecture, I was giving an interview with Srila Prabhupada and Allen Ginsberg, the famous beat poet, and Prabhupada was making this point. You don't have to chant Krishna, chant, you worship Allah, chant Allah, chant Jehovah, chant Jehovah, Yahweh, chant Yahweh, Buddha, Buddha, Jesus, it's fine. Just chant the name of God. So that's the essential process. And then just to encourage people to associate with devotees. Our process is so simple. Chant, dance, feast, eat prasadam, and it just naturally awakens. Prabhupada mentioned that purport, it just naturally awakens. So we don't have to force anything, but we have to push ourselves a little bit. So if someone's just starting out, says, I'm just starting out, how do I get serious in spiritual life, associate with devotees, and everything else will come? That would be my first suggestion. My second suggestion would be, once you start association with devotees, don't be disturbed at how many things they tell you you should do. Nobody laughed at that. That's disappointing. Have you ever experienced that? I know, when I was a Bhakta leader in the Denver Temple a long time ago, we had a rule. When we had random people moved in kind of cold, like they say, the rule was only the person directly in charge of mentoring them can give them instruction. Because otherwise, as soon as they sit down, it's like, don't point your feet there, don't touch your fingers to that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And they just say, this is just a bunch of rules and regulations, and they give it up. Our process is not based on rules and regulations. Our process is based on loving Krishna. And as we gradually awaken our love for Krishna, we see there's certain things that aren't helpful for us. And they happen to be the rules and regulations. The rules and regulations are to help us, they're kind of like guidelines on the river to keep us directed in the right way. So we shouldn't overemphasize with new people. Don't drive people away by too many do this and don't do that. But for the new person, just associate with devotees and eat a lot of prasadam, chant Hare Krishna, dance in front of the deities, have fun. Prabhu said, become Krishna conscious and enjoy life with a thrill at every moment. Wow, that's pretty exciting. Enjoy life with a thrill at every moment. People pay a lot of money to go to like some, $150 probably these days to go to Disneyland or something like that. Maybe like they'll find one, you wait an hour and a half for the ride, you go down, down, up, up. Phew, thrill. Finished. Prabhu's enjoy life with a thrill at every moment. Wow, that's quite a claim. And the person that said that has never cheated us. Everything else he's told us has been true. He told us you chant Hare Krishna, become more peaceful. Wow. He says you give up these things that are self-destructive habits, you feel better. Wow, I feel better. You hang out with these people, oh, I feel better. Study this philosophy, see if it makes sense. It makes sense. That same person said you can enjoy life with a thrill at every moment. He says you can see Krishna face to face when we become purified. Whoa. Not Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, anybody you love or hate, whatever. Not that, no Krishna. Is that okay? Thank you. Yes, Prabhu.
So, like,
Nice
after,
enough so they can hear.
yeah, so sometimes it's easy to become a bit jaded after a few years. I mean, the initial thrills there when you join Krishna consciousness, and how do you maintain that enthusiasm as you go on?
That's a very nice question. He says sometimes we might become a little jaded or lose enthusiasm after some time. How do we maintain that enthusiasm? Well, there's even in the scripture that sometimes Krishna, to help us, we have to step back a little bit. According to our Vaishnava theology, we are individual spirit souls who were with Krishna. We made like the wrong turn into the material world. We made a choice. I want to try to live separately from God. I want to try to enjoy the material world. This whole world has two purposes. One, to help us try to enjoy separately from Krishna, and to help us get connected again with Krishna. So when we first become a little serious, Krishna sometimes gives us a little undeserved special mercy, just to help convince us of the reality of Krishna consciousness. It may be that because of our karma and our consciousness and our desires, we're really not yet desiring Krishna. We just kind of want to get out of the suffering or whatever. He gives us some special insight and realization to enthuse us, like a little extra, boost of energy, so to speak. And Narada Muni had that experience. So many great devotees had that experience. So that happens to many of us, if not all of us. It's very common. That's a little extra mercy. And we should remember that, and that should be the impetus for us to continue on. And if we sometimes feel jaded a little bit, we should think this means I'm forgetting. I'm becoming forgetful. And I'm not actually seeing what the material world is. I'm starting to allow myself to think it's a nicer place than it is. And I'm not hearing enough about Krishna, because if I'm actually understanding the difference between Krishna consciousness and the mundane consciousness, I won't be jaded. I'll be enthusiastic. But it happens to all of us because we get a little covered over. So that should be a warning. I got to be a little more attentive and more serious about what I'm doing. But it's good to ask questions like that, not just to let it kind of eat away at us.
Thank you.
And to pray, Krishna, dear Krishna, I don't want to become jaded. I don't want to lose faith. I don't want to, I do not want to go and try to enjoy the same things I try to enjoy in this life and other lives and maybe millions of lives. I want you, please help me focus my intelligence on you. And you'll help us. But he also wants us to call out to him. That's the whole thing, is how do you connect with him? So if we don't connect with him, sometimes he just ratchets up the temperature a little bit. That's his kindness too. Okay? Thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
How many times should we chant Hare Krishna mantra every day?
Every day? Well, and the general rule is often as you can. For those that have taken, for those that are starting, we recommend, we have beads in our little store, and you get a set of beads, and we should try to chant a fixed number every day, because that helps us control our mind and our senses more. We dedicate a certain amount of time every day to chant. It can be one time around, which is like 108 beads, or Those that take initiation, we chant 16 times around our beads as a minimum. So the general principle is much as possible, and if we want to be a little more serious, we fix the number of times, 108 or twice that, or up to 16 times that. But the best thing for us is whatever we commit to doing, we do that as a minimum every day. So not like one day I sit down and chant, for 2 hours in my little meditation corner at home, my altar at home, and then I don't chant for 2 months. That's not so good. Better I chant 5 minutes every day for forever, as long as you can. So a fixed amount of time is good. Is that okay? Good, thank you. Nice question. Any other questions? Yes, Prabhu.
So, someone who had just started and say he's doing 16 rounds and doing all these three
If
varieties,
he just started, he's doing 16 rounds, I followed his feet and asked for his mercy. Wow, what soul is that?
so what can be the resolution for that? So, like for 2020, and also the time you said yesterday. So, how much time and we should dedicate to Krishna consciousness? So, like,
Well, same principle, we should dedicate as much time as we possibly can. But we also understand that I'm a soul living in a material body. My body has certain requirements. I've got a family, maybe I've got a job, I've got a mortgage or rent to pay, I've got to feed myself, I've got to clothe myself, I've got to take care of my kids. So we take care of those different duties that we have. We try to simplify those to spare as much time as possible for spiritual life. So, in other words, practically all of us, you need a car in this day and age. You don't need a new car. If you had a friend that bought a new car every week, what would you think? What a waste. Don't you have anything else to do with your time and your money? I mean, you have to go to the car dealer, right? Or if you had a friend that bought a new car once a month, what would you think? What a waste. Every 6 months. This guy's a little crazy. Every 6 months. Once a year, you think, oh, this guy's got more money than I have. Right? He's got a lot of money. But is that necessary? It starts to feel like, oh, it's a good thing. But is that necessary? Is the time and the money that he or she spent, was that necessary? Could they maybe save some time, save some money in order to, for Krishna conscious? Now, if they're an Uber driver and they put 500,000 miles on their car every year, sure, they got to buy a new car as part of the business. So for them, it wouldn't be whimsical. It'd be a necessary thing. So we have to see what's whimsical and what helps us. For me, walking around my pond, it's not whimsical. I need that. I know that. I just stay in, and I got to get out there before the sun goes down. And I just know that. I got to see the sun before the sun goes down, or else my energy's gone. So we need to understand our own mind and our own body and what those needs are. And then, as much as possible, the rest of the time give to Krishna. Prabhupada met his guru in 1922. He didn't come to America until 1965. Right? His guru told him to preach in the West, but he had a family, he had kids, he had responsibilities, so he brought in Krishna consciousness as much as he could as a grahasta. He tried to help his spiritual master's mission as much as he could. But later in life, he realized, now's the time I can give full time to this, and he did. And we're all very fortunate. But even he's an example for us. He didn't, He even says, when I met my Guru Maharaj, I was thinking, I wish I could give up everything and go with you, but I'm married. I think he had one child at that time too. He said, I can't do it. But that didn't prevent him from spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world and being an example to us. So bhakti is about balance. It's not about fanaticism. It's about balance. Okay? Yes?
You mentioned that you read the Washington Post every day. And
I didn't say every day. I didn't admit that. But thanks for revealing me. Yeah. Sometimes several times a day, I have to admit. Maybe more than I need to, but go ahead.
So that's my question, right? Sometimes when we're a devotee, it's easy to just listen to lectures or read, Krishna conscious materials, but then we kind of develop, it says that also in the scriptures that we're kind of indifferent to other, the material things. So where's the balance between, kind of knowing what's going on and not being so in our own bubble?
Yeah, that's a great. Everybody hear the question? What's the difference between being indifferent or being in our own bubble and needing to know what's going on in there? I mean, it depends upon who we are and what we're doing. If you are a sannyasi in the mountains of Nepal, and your whole life is focused on kirtan and, you know, talking to the village people, you don't necessarily need to know what's going on. If you work in the business environment and you buy and sell stocks, you better know what's going on or get another job, right? If you work in communications, as I do, I have to have a fairly good idea of what's going on, or else I talk to people. I had an experience one time. I was the host of an awards ceremony for people that give secular media that have done like yearly achievements in like Time Magazine and NBC and CNN and whatever. We give awards, this organization. So I was the host. And they briefed me on all the words, because some of the things were like some Christian names, like there's a movie about, I think it's called, I don't even know, like wherever Christ was, the hill Christ was crucified, Bethesda or something like that. Some tactic. So all my Christian friends coached me and all that, right? But then we gave an award to, he was on the first day, Colbert. What's the first name? Stephen Colbert, yeah. I'd never seen the show. I'd read his name 100 times, so I said, yeah, now we have an award for Stephen Colbert. And the whole room looked at me like, why are you up there if you're so dumb? You know, I never heard the name. I learned all these Christian terms. I didn't know this is Colbert. That's how you spell it, C-O-L-B-E-R-T, you know. I don't know if it contributed to it, but it might have had something to do with the fact they never invited me back. I went 2 years, but after that year, I wasn't invited back again. So you need to know some things according to your situation. That's the general thing. I mean, if you work in the medical field, you have to know what's going on in the medical field. You know, I live in Washington. People work in a political environment. They need to know, like, which senator just got revealed for what and who won of office or congressman or something. So again, we need to know what's going on in the world. We're all grahastas. We live in the world. We should know. We shouldn't be ignorant of that. But be careful that, you know, too much dalliance in those things can actually be a distraction. You know? So I think we have to kind of ask ourselves, so is this actually helping me be a well-rounded human being and helping my service as a devotee of Krishna? Is this going to help me be a better mom or be a better employee or a better neighbor? Well, okay, great, I can use it. Part of what I need to know in one of my roles that I'm playing in this life. And otherwise, maybe it's not so helpful. I can minimize. You know? Yeah. You have to be a little, like, reasonable with ourselves. You know, sometimes we think being devotee is. You know, there's an example given that when there's a big storm, the trees that stand too straight, they all get blown down. The trees that can bend a little bit, they make it through the storm. So we have to be, you know, we should be strict in our Krishna conscious application. We have to be a little flexible sometimes too. You know? So if you go to home program and you made a decision, I really shouldn't eat anything else tonight, I had too much today. Oh, it's pizza. Can I have 2, please? You have to be real with yourself. Is that okay? Because remember, Krishna's your best friend. He didn't put us here to punish us, really. It's like just to help us realize that we need him. So some of us, maybe we can go really, really fast. Some of us, maybe our pace is a little slower. But just do what we need to do to make progress in our Krishna consciousness. Did that answer your question? This is a really important question. Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
One last quick question from
There's
Damji
one
Mehta.
here. Can we do 2 quick? I saw him first.
So Dami has her hand up for a while.
Okay. Sorry, they nixed you, Prabhu. Okay.
Thank you and enlightening classroom. So nice. My question is how to overcome pride.
Pride.
And it seems it's even more difficult when it comes to the case of a spouse.
Okay, miss the second part. How do we overcome pride?
And it becomes even more difficult if it's a spouse.
It becomes even more difficult if we're a spouse.
In the case of a spouse.
In the case of a spouse. Like, I'm proud of my spouse? Or,
I know better than my spouse.
oh, I think I know better than my spouse. Well, you probably do. That's an easy one. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay. Pride is a very serious problem in human society. Pride is, you know, we hear about, what is it, lust, anger, and greed, the 3 gates. to help. I think pride may be more difficult than the others. And pride is really, really, really dangerous in spiritual life. The world is full of proud religious people killing each other. All these religious wars that are going on are religiously motivated wars, one way or the other. They're proud. God has blessed us, not you. We're God's people, not you. Our book is God's book, not yours. Our land is God's land, not yours. But the fact is, we're all children of Krishna, whether we're male or female or born in India or Afghanistan or America or Russia or whatever, white, black, brown, doesn't matter. We're all spirit souls inside the body's just a company. But we become proud of our temporary situations, and that leads us to become harsh towards others. That's the problem. We become harsh. We start thinking, I'm special, and you're less important, and I treat you harshly because you're not as important as I am. Your religion's not as important, your community's not as important, your job's not as important, your social status is not important. So we become proud. Prabhupada sometimes would quote that expression, even the pauper is proud of his pennies. So there's one story I can tell on this. Prabhupada was Tamal Krishna Maharaj in the early years, I think before he was a Swami. Prabhupada made him, I think it was the temple commander of the temple in Los Angeles. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked Prabhupada the same question. How do I avoid pride? You know, you give me this big position, temple commander. I'm going to become proud, Prabhupada. How to avoid this? So Prabhupada said, I'll paraphrase, I don't know the exact quote, but Prabhupada said, okay, let's analyze this. Within the whole spiritual sky, there's a small section which is the material world. Within that material world, there's millions of universes. We're within one. Within that one universe, there's innumerable planets. We're on one planet called Earth. Within the Earth planet, there's 7 continents. We're in one called North America. Within North America, there's 50 states. Within the United States, we're in one called California. Within California, there's hundreds of cities. We're in one called Los Angeles. Within Los Angeles, there's hundreds of streets. We're on one, La Cienega, which is the street at that time. So on the street of La Cienega, there's dozens of houses. Within that one house on La Cienega Street, you're the commander, and you're proud? Paraphrase. That was very close to that. So, if we think about it, I'm proud. What am I going to be proud of? I had experience recently. I had a similar thought. I was in India just a couple months ago, and they have these youth centers full of very enthusiastic young college students. So they had a holiday or something. I was there, gave class, and I was leading kirtan, and they were all really excited and enthusiastic. You know, I'm leading the kirtan, and they're kind of looking at me like, "Wow, you're leading the kirtan, and thank you so much." And I had the same question popped in my mind. I'm chanting Jai Radhamata, which is a simple tune. I don't know much. No, Hare Krishna. No, Jai Radhamata, simple tune. Very easy, few keys, few chords. And the same thought popped in my mind. I thought, Krishna, I'm just with like 20 young guys and they're a little enthusiastic for me leading kirtan. What do you do if there's like 1,000 people following you or enthusiastic? Or what if, like whatever? What do you do? So I was just thinking that thought. And all of a sudden, I forgot the melody. I played it hundreds of times. I forgot the melody. Completely, I didn't know where it was. I didn't know the melody. I didn't know what keys to hit. I thought, wow, thank you, Krishna. Thanks for showing me that. I don't know anything. I can't, you take my memory away in a second, it's gone. And it happens all the time. It's like, whatever I can do is in the mercy of Krishna. Whatever I can't do is in the mercy of Krishna. And if we remember that, we can't really get proud. If the pride comes in, we think, it's just my mind. Mind your mind. Please shut up. There's millions of planets, there's one, blah, 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 all the way down here, and I'm feeling proud. Now, proud of your spouse, yes, you should be proud of your spouse. That's another conversation. Okay? And your kids. Proud of your kids, too. Okay, we'll stop there?
Yes.
Okay,
And
thank you
more
all very
questions,
much.
you can catch Prabhu during Prashadam. In the interest of time, we'll continue. I actually realized in my enthusiasm to tell you all about the new deities, we forgot to chant our prayer to